Welcome to Sunday Springboard with Melanie and Kimberlyn Coaching, where we help women recover from and flourish after stress and trauma. How many New Year's resolutions have you broken? How many times have you decided you're going to make a change? You're going to change a habit. You're going to leave an abusive situation, get a new job, lose some weight, stop smoking, keep your desk clean, start a daily Bible reading habit. All these things that we plan to do, good changes that will be good for us. We start them, we're excited, and it doesn't take very long usually. And we have stopped whatever we're doing. We have gone back to where we were before, and we're like, what happened? I must be lazy. I must be undisciplined. I have no willpower. We see this as a problem with our character. What is wrong with me? How many times have you told yourself something like this? I know I've been through this scenario many times. We're continuing in our series today about change. Why is it so hard? And how can we get to the point where we can actually make sustainable changes in our lives? Changes that we want to make, changes that we need to make. We want to, but it just seems impossible. In the previous videos, we've talked about how our brains love to make habits. And this is one of the reasons that we have problems with change, is because we've got the ruts in our brain, the neural pathways, and we're having a hard time changing those. We're going to actually go deeper into this concept today. If you have missed the previous videos, you might want to go back to my website, kimberlyncoaching.com. Watch them on the Springboard tab. There's a series on trauma, and there is the ongoing series on change. Both of these will give you good foundations that will really help you understand all the things we're talking about. However, we are going to do a little bit of a recap today, so I think you can understand today and get a lot out of today's video, even if you haven't watched the previous ones. But I think at some point you will want to go back and watch those. I am going to share my screen with you. Give me just a minute. Okay, so we're going to talk about breaking the change cycle and taming the dragon. Okay, let's talk about the change cycle. First of all, when you're even thinking of making a change, you're starting out discontent. You're in a situation, you're not happy, you don't like it, you hang in, you ignore certain things, you repress some things, you ignore some things, you're tolerating and dealing with it, maybe because you don't know how to get out of it, maybe you feel comfortable and familiar, maybe you're afraid of change. There's all kind of reasons you're not at this point doing anything about it, but you're not happy. You are discontent. Next, something happens eventually to cause you to get to the breaking point. You're like, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. Your discontent builds high enough that straw that broke that camel's back got broke. And you decide, I cannot deal with this anymore. I am not living this way anymore. It's either you get here from exhaustion, I have given this all I can give it, I've got nothing left to give. Or maybe some dramatic event happens and that triggers this break. So now you make a decision. When you make this decision, this gives you a feeling of hope and a feeling of power. I am going to change this. I am not going to put up with this anymore, or I am not going to deal with this situation. I'm going to make the changes that will make me happy, make me feel successful, powerful, and move my life into the life that I really want to live. We're taking this first step. We're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, and we're starting to feel good. But then what happens? It's hard. Change is hard. We start to feel fear. We start to feel discomfort. We start looking back, and the changes that we're making going forward are hard. We're not like especially like if you're stopping smoking or you're trying to lose weight, you actually feel your body feels uncomfortable as you're making these changes. If you've left an abusive situation, Then maybe you're feeling lonely. You're missing the person that you left. You're starting to feel these uncomfortable things, and you think about the old one, and you start to doubt your decisions. Both options look bad. Staying, going, neither one looks very good. You start to feel helpless and empty, and then you start having amnesia. You start thinking, well, maybe the old situation wasn't so bad. Maybe it was okay, and I can find a way to live with it. Maybe you start second guessing yourself. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I'm imagining things. Maybe it's just not that bad. It's just not worth what I'm going through right now. In this problem or this situation that you wanted to change has become so much of a part of your identity, it's hard to let it go. Who are you if you're not dealing with this situation? You temporarily forget why you wanted to change so badly. And then you backtracking. Most people go back to what it was they were doing before. If you left an abusive situation, you might actually go right back home. If were trying to change some kind of a habit in your life, you go right back. You pick up those cigarettes, you pick up the food, you put down the Bible if that was what you're trying to do. The changes that you make, you go back to where you were, and because you essentially talked yourself out of changing. Now, what normally happens when we go through these steps, we normally are critical and judgmental, right? We're bad mouthing ourselves. Can't believe I did this again. What is wrong with me? We look around, we see other people, it seems like they made these changes, and yet I can't. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. And we blame this all on ourselves. Let's backtrack a little bit and let's figure out what is actually going on here. What is going on physiologically? Excuse me. So let's talk a few more minutes about trauma. Let's remember that trauma is not necessarily a big, major event happening in your life. It can be daily, stressful, anxiety, um, anger, negativity, criticism, walking on eggshells, just day to day stressful, instability in life causes trauma in your body because remember, our brain wants to keep us safe. When it senses we're in danger, either physical or emotional, it pours all those hormones. Remember, we called that a fiery cocktail of hormones, and they turn us into one of the metaphors we're going to use is Hulk mode. So first we had Bruce Banner, if y'all remember that. Bruce Banner is mild-mannered, scientist, rational. He can discern, he can make decisions, he can think, he can hope. And the Hulk cannot. He just reacts. He's usually in anger, and you cannot discuss things and work things out with him. And when we are in Hulk mode, we can't make the changes that we need to make, the little changes that need to be made in order to do the big changes. And normally, what should happen, the way our brain is supposed to do, is we start out what we call regulated. This is where we're calm. This is where we're in Bruce Banner mode. Our brain senses we're in danger, pours the hormones out. We're deregulated for a while, dysregulated. We're in Hulk brain. We get out of danger, and our body metabolizes those hormones. Remember, it takes from 6 to 30 hours, depending upon your situation. You metabolize those hormones out of your body, and you're back in Bruce Banner mode. You're back regulated. However, people that have this stressful situation day after day after day may never get the hormones metabolized, and they may never get out of Hulk mode. They're constantly in Hulk mode, and they can't get back to Bruce Banner mode. So when you're living like this, you don't have the ability to make the changes that you need to make, to have the focus in your brain to do what you're trying to do here. We've talked about a couple different metaphors. We've got Einstein brain versus Frankenstein brain. We've got unicorn brain versus the dragon brain. And again, we're going to talk about dragon brain today. Another way to explain this is this ladder. Whoops. At the top of the ladder is where we're regulated. We are, if you've learned the levels of energy from me when I've taught those earlier, these would be levels 3 through 7, when we're pretty much can deal with life. We're basically happy. We're basically social. We're able to deal with the things that come up. The middle part of the ladder is when we are in level 2, and it would be when you're fighting or fleeing, and you're in the anger, you're in movement, you're in adapting, you're trying to get out of the situation. And the bottom of the ladder would be our level 1, where you have other stuff doesn't seem to work, so you just kind of close up, you shut down, you're numb, you do the freeze, and you're trying to just ignore and withdraw. When you're in level 1 and level 2 in the bottom of this ladder, again, you're not going to be able to think clearly enough to make the changes you need. So you have to be at the top of the ladder or in a regulated brain before you can make the changes you need to make sustainable change. Okay? Here's some more of our refresh. Remember that we talked about the brain loves to be efficient with energy, does not want to use a lot of energy. So it makes habits of everything. Anything you do for a few times turns into a habit. If you do something for a long amount of time, years of your life, you end up with deeply ingrained neural pathways in your head. Your brain looks like this freeway. All these neural pathways and these habits are created so you don't have to spend so much energy. When you were learning to ride a bike or learning to drive a car, you remember you had to think of so many things. It was hard. It took a lot of effort. But as you learned it, you got to where none of us, we don't think when we ride a bike, we don't think when we drive a car for the most part, because it has become habitual in our brains. We've got neural pathways, we've got our driving our car pathways and riding our bike pathways. And so we don't have to even think about that. And that's what our brain likes. Now we're going to watch a little clip. This is by a man named Destin Sandlin. He's an engineer, and some friends of his created a backwards bike that they're asking him to try to ride. And to do this, he's having to rewire his brain.
Friend Barney called me 25 years later. Where I work, the welders are geniuses and they like to play jokes on the engineers. He had a challenge for me. He had built a special bicycle and he wanted me to try to ride it. He had only changed one thing. When you turn the handlebar to the left, the wheel goes to the right. When you turn it to the right, the wheel goes to the left. I thought this would be easy, so I hopped on the bike ready to demonstrate how quickly I could conquer this.
And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Destin Sandlin. First attempt riding the bicycle. So after I got it
Yeah, I couldn't do it. You can see that I'm laughing, but I'm actually really frustrated. In this moment, I had a really deep revelation. My thinking was in a rut. This bike revealed a very deep truth to me. I had the knowledge of how to operate the bike, but I did not have the understanding. Therefore, knowledge is not understanding.
So
Friend Barney,
he goes on to tell you more about the story, and he worked every day learning to ride this bike. It took him 8 months, and finally, after 8 months, he had changed his neural pathways in his brain enough that he could ride that backwards bike. Interestingly, when he tried after that to ride a regular bike, he couldn't ride the regular one until he'd ridden it for enough to redo those pathways. Now, the other interesting thing is that he had his son work to learn this bike. His son was like 5 years old. And where it took Destin 8 months to learn to ride the bike and to redo his neural pathways, it only took his son 2 weeks, and he was able to ride the bike. So this shows what happens. His son did not have as many years of those neural pathways cemented in like Destin, and his brain was more what they call had more neuroplasticity, which means the brain can change. However, as adults, they have found that our brains can change also. It just takes longer and is harder than it is for children. So, when the dragon sees the energy that it takes, so for him to learn to ride that bike, it took a lot of energy. It took a lot of effort from his brain. The dragon does not like this. When he sees you're doing this energy, he thinks you're wasting the energy. You need to save the energy in case you're in danger, then you can use it. So he wants you to go back to habitual. So he sees this as danger, pours you those fiery cocktail of hormones like we've talked to you before. Now, what happens, depending upon whether your default is to fight, flight, or freeze, you end up with all these emotions, not all of them, but many of these emotions, and these emotions feel bad. These emotions take you back into our stuck cycles of our change cycle. These emotions make you have the fear, the discomfort. You end up with the amnesia and you end up with the backtracking. These happen because you are feeling all these emotions here, and we think that there's something wrong with us for feeling these. The thing is, these are perfectly normal for us to feel these because of what is happening in our bodies, because of what our brain is thinking, which we have no control over at the moment. Okay? So when we're in these stuck cycles, if we cannot criticize ourselves, not judge ourselves, if we can just realize what is happening and have compassion, and let's work on ways actually to not get in these cycles. But if we do, now we know what's going on. It's not that we have no willpower or no self-discipline. It's that change is hard. We're fighting our brain. We're fighting the dragon. And who wins against the dragon? What we want to do is we want to tame the dragon, become friends with the dragon. So what does this mean about sustainable change? So let's just kind of recap it all. Let's say you wanted to lose 25 pounds. Um, Turns out they don't have any proof that most people that try to lose on purpose don't ever keep it off. We're going to talk about that another day, but let's just talk about this for the moment. So you create a goal with action steps, you begin to work on it. How long before you give up and you start cheating on the weight loss regime? This is because your dragon has sensed that you're in danger. Because staying on the goal creates extraordinary amounts of cognitive energy. Because your normal way of eating, your normal way of reacting in life is a certain way. And now you're trying to move over here and do a different thing, and it's very difficult. This energy demand is seen as overwhelming, and your dragon, which is your threat response system, wants to bring you out of the deliberate, the intentional, the conscious actions that are taking so much of your energy, wants to bop you back into your habitual memory, which is the habits, which does not take much energy. We're actually going to talk more about this next week about the habitual, and whether you mitigate, which is freezing, or whether you adapt, which is changing. So next week, we're going to keep on talking about this more. But for right now, our dragon sees our goal as a threat. So what do we do about that? Well, first of all, if we don't do anything, we're going to fail. We're going to self-sabotage. We're going to feel shame. We're going to blame our character, our willpower, and our belief system is starting to tell us you're never going to be able to do this. You may as well not even try. Your dragon is trying to get you to believe this. It's strengthening this thought so you can keep the status quo. You can keep running the way your dragon brain wants you to. Again, what does this tell us? Our cognitive desires are not aligned. Our thinking, our emotions, we have not gotten the dragon buy-in yet. Remember that we have to be at the top of the ladder. We have to be in the regulated brain. Before we can do this, we have to build new neural pathways. We have to invest enough practice to make these new neural pathways to support these changes. Again, how do we do this? This is hard. It is hard. First of all, you have to be in a regulated body. Now, if y'all don't remember, if you want more about the regulated body, watch those videos. But to regulate your body, there are many different ways, and you have to find what works for you. So, breathing exercises, I've given you a few breathing exercises in some of the videos. Meditation, but if you're in really Hulk mode, you may not be able to calm down to do that, but it might be helpful for some people. Yoga, exercise, moving your body, any kind of moving your body. It doesn't have to be major exercise. Walking, One of the things you're trying to do is you're trying to increase your feel good hormones. That helps. So the fiery cocktail hormones cancel out your good ones. So you want to try to get those moving again. So things that make you feel good, maybe some music, maybe laughter, babies, animals, maybe some, those cat videos. Those are a good thing. Um, Hanging out with your friends, talking with your friends. One of the things I like to do is I like to put YouTube on and do line dancing. Right? I'm in my home. Nobody can see how silly I look. It does a lot of good things. Gets a lot of endorphins going. But you've got to find what works for you. And as you start to learn to do this and use these tools, you can learn to calm yourself down. Another thing is you want to start becoming aware of where you're feeling it in your body. So maybe you're feeling tense in your shoulders. Start on purpose, calming down your shoulders, releasing the tension there. Start to become aware in your body where you're feeling these things. Because all these things that we have all along thought these were just emotions, just mental, they're actually the normal way of acting because of the physiological changes in our body. So where are you feeling that in your body? Next, we want to take baby steps. It's kind of like we're wanting to fool the dragon. These tiny habits, there's several books about tiny habits. I have them listed on my website in the resource tab. I actually didn't look them up again to remind myself, but one is actually called Tiny Habits. One is Atomic Habits, and there's another one, and they're very good. And they all talk about make tiny, tiny changes, tiny baby steps. And I was talking to a coach friend about this, and she says, well, what are some examples of some of those baby steps? And I thought, yeah, that's a really good idea. So I'm going to give you some ideas that I came up with. If you have some ideas, please put them in the chat. Add them to the post later on or whatever. But so here's some ideas. So let's say you wanted to stop smoking. Maybe you normally smoke a pack a day. Maybe take 1 or 2 cigarettes out, throw them away, and then for a week you're just going to do 1 pack minus 2. So maybe you want to lose some weight. Maybe you 1 meal a day you leave some food on your plate. Maybe you're wanting to eat more fruits and vegetables. Maybe 1 meal a day you add a fruit or a vegetable. Maybe you're wanting to leave an abusive situation. Maybe you start making a list of the things that person has done to you, reasons for that. Maybe you're married to an addict or something. Maybe you go get your own bank account. Now that may not be a baby step. That might be a big step. Some of these things could be a baby step for someone and a big step for someone else. So you have to kind of figure these out for yourself. What are some baby steps? If you're wanting to make your Bible reading habit, maybe you get the YouVersion app on your phone and you sign up for the daily Bible verse. And so it's going to pop it up there. It's going to give you that verse and you can read a verse a day. We're actually going to later on, we'll delve more into these habits. We'll use some of the stuff I've learned from those books and we'll talk about those. But today, these are just some ideas. And if you want some more help in having some baby steps, obviously one of the things on our list of how to do this is to get support. You can have the support of a friend, a counselor, a therapist, maybe the support that you could use would be a coach. I would love to visit with you, help you come up with your baby steps so that you can make these changes sustainable and actually move you to the life that you want to live. I have put a link in the show notes. You can click that link, you can schedule, and I would love to give anyone who wants one a free coaching session. I can help you come up with those baby steps or anything else that you want to be coached on. And meanwhile, I hope that I've given you some good information today and that you will have more compassion on yourself, that you will work on calming your body this week, and that you will take baby steps. Have a great week.